take you through a series of lessons about how to use New Zealand flax in really modern contemporary ways, but better than that, quick and easy ways. During the course of this DVD, I'm also going to finish off these designs at Hamilton Designers Club. So I'll show you the basic techniques here, then I'm going to take you over to Hamilton, which is a city in New Zealand, and we'll finish them off with all the ladies at do. So the first thing you're going to need is a vase. Now it can be the ugliest vase you own because you're not going to see it. A tall, skinny vase. You're also going to need some double-sided sellotape, and this is the cool thing, you're going to have to eat something, because when you next go shopping in your supermarket, you are looking for a tiny little plastic container. This one had pesto in it, and yes, we did enjoy eating that pesto, and the reason you want it is for the lid. You're going to use that in design later on, but it's the lid, and you want the lid so it will actually fit just slightly bigger than the bottom of your vase. That's just going to have a wee bit of water in it because New Zealand flax really does shrink quickly if it doesn't have water, and it will totally muck up your design. You're also going to need some glass files. Now these are called lots of different things in different countries. Sometimes they're called glass test tubes, sometimes they're called flower files, glass files. In Canada they call them flower picks. But what all they are, they're made of glass and they're little test tubes. So there's your list of ingredients plus some flax. This has come directly off my flax bush here in Floral Design headquarters. See, it's still pretty mucky, it's even got its bugs still on it. So that's going to all be wiped off and we're ready to start. Start with your double-sided sellotape, and you're going to just put it around the top. So it goes right round the top, and cut it, certainly not like that. Let's see if we can make it a little bit straighter than that. It's really, really sticky stuff. Right the way round, and it's done. Now, if you've never seen double-sided sellotape, it's really cool. Obviously that side's really sticky on there now, and here's the second part, so that just comes straight off like that, and it's done. Do that right the way down the container, so that you've got plenty of places for the flax to stick, because yes, the flax is actually going to stick to the outside of this container. I'm going to leave a little flap so I can take it off, and then I'm going to do a third one at the base, right the way around, and there. Now that's giving plenty of places for that flax to stick. And then once again, just peel off that outside covering on that one and tidy it up there, and peel it off on this one, and there it is, all ready to add your flax onto it. Now we'll prepare the flax. As I said, it's straight out of my garden, so you can see it's got these brown little ends on it, which you certainly wouldn't want to use. They're hideous. Start at the top here and just split it right the way down. Right, when you get to this end, it's all chunky and really not usable, so just chop it. Now we get to this vase here, and I want it so that this top end is just at the top of the vase like that, alright? So we're going to cut it, but first thing, let's get rid of that ugly, ugly top. Now the measurement. I want it about there. So I'm going to cut it here. This is the magic part. You'll never believe this part. You just put it to the bottom, press it over, and up it goes. And that is the beginning of you making a wonderful container of design with New Zealand flax on the outside. So I'll do another one for you so you get it right. You can see what I did. I chop off the ugly pieces at the top. You know, you can be really creative with this. You can cut it square, you can cut it round, you can do anything you want. You notice I just stripped that down because it was all ugly. Measure it again. Now this is your choice. You can either have it exactly the same, or you can have some up and some down. Now I'm an asymmetrical person, so I like to have some up, some down. My husband will test this. I actually don't like order. My office is a mess. But there it is again. So now I've done it so it's slightly bigger. I'm going to overlap it slightly. New Zealand Flax does shrink. I don't want to do all this work and then see that bars. And down, press it down onto the double-sided sellotape and all the way up. And there's my second piece. Done. Could that be easier? Now you can see why you needed the lid. Because when we stand the lid on there, we tuck these inside, a wee bit of water in there, and it's watering that flax so it keeps it turgid. I'm going to carry on, and I'll come back to you when I've done a wee bit more. So you can see now I've put that first layer on and it's sticking beautifully to that double-sided sellotape, but obviously there's white bits still showing through. You don't want that. So the next thing you're going to do is do this all over again with a second layer. Alright, so you start once again putting on your double-sided sellotape. Right the way around, just like before. And cutting it off, taking it off and doing it 3 times all the way around the base of it. Then I'm going to build another one onto that one. I'll just do these ones on here, then I'll get back to you. So there it is, there's the second layer of sellotape. You'll see what it's done being double-sided. Of course it's also holding these ones down rather nicely. So we just rip those off, and you could actually tell me now what to do next, because you now know I'm going to prepare more flax exactly the same way as before and put them over the top on that second lot. Pretty easy, isn't it? Can't do much, can't go wrong with this, but the effect when you're finished is sensational. Chop off the little pieces at the top, remember? We'll start with that one because it's just looking at you and going, yee! Put it down, slide it up, and up it goes. And you do that once again, all the way around. What's cool about doing it is also making this lovely and dense up the top here, having those 2 layers. Right, catch in a minute. So there it is, the second layer's on. You see now it's giving it that beautiful smooth effect with this lovely piece up the top here. And actually you could leave it like that. If you just like that form, you could say, hey, that's me done, I'm finished. But I prefer to have some flowers. I'm a flower girl. If you use proportions of the ancient Greeks, you only really need to put 3 or 5 flowers in. I'm going to use nerines today, and when you see this being made by the ladies in Hamilton, at the Hamilton Designers, they're going to use garden flowers as well, and then we'll have a look and see this all finished. So next time I see you with this design, I'll be in a hall in Hamilton. See you there. Can you see the difference? It means if I'm going to ask you to do an arrangement where you're going to put flax in upright, how are you going to feel when you try to use that one? So frustrated. Then you're going to look at the person beside you and say, she's really an expert because she's making it all straight. It's how the flax grows. Some goes floppy, like my stomach. Some goes upright, like you won't say. So, that's the difference in the flax.
Now you've seen the method, let's have a look at the variations in the Hamilton Designers. See, they are attaching all sorts of beautiful variegated flax to the white container with a double-sided sellotape. Taking the double-sided sellotape off for the second layer. Stripping the flax, cutting it at the bottom where the hard piece is. And now adding the test tubes, just pushing them on to the second layer of flax with a double-sided sellotape. Clipping the tops, hiding this tape, hiding any bits there that are showing, and just doing the finishing touches. Squishing it all together with their hands, and now adding the flowers. Roses look beautiful with that variegated flax, and the finished result. You can see 5 different designs, look 5 completely different because of the different plant material you use them. And this is what's going to happen with your design depending on the flax you use and the flowers, what it's going to look like.
This design is just as simple as the last one. It's late summer when I'm doing it, and these are all out in my garden, and this is a very cool design if you've got very, very few flowers to work with. I'm going to start with a bowl. Now the one I'm going to use is actually with this, and it's a set of 3, incredibly cheap from a forestry wholesaler, but because you end up with 3 of them and they're all the same, which means you can do this design 3 times, put them together, and they'll look really, really cool. Obviously back to flax work, and this one is inspired by Monet's garden. Monet was a painter and he had water lilies. My water lilies are going to be these beautiful little camellias. Yours could be roses, which I used previously when I've been doing this design. Anything that's got a big round form. I've also used a contrast with the flax, variegated flax. The contrast is going to be this Ming fern. So have a look in your garden for something that I call tizzy, which is sort of is the only way I can really describe it. And then the other thing I'm going to use is the very last of the hydrangeas, because I'm going to cut these off the bits. You notice I've selected the colours that they all go together. If you do this before you start, you're guaranteed it's going to look pretty when it's finished. Alright, so let's get started. Different sort of flax this time. It's a variegated flax. You can see it's pretty revolting. It's straight out of the garden. It's got brown bits on it. It didn't have enough water. So this is a really good design for flax. So all you're going to see is the edge. Doesn't matter about anything down in here. You're not going to see it. And you're not going to believe how quick this is to do. The idea is to create a lily pond. And this is the swirling water. So start at one end and just curl it. And curl it. That's all you're doing. And you're making this lovely curl. And when you put it in this container, you're just going to go ding and let it come apart. That's all you're doing. Do it with the next one. If you look at flax, it'll bend one way or the other way. Can you see how when I'm bending it that way, it's got all these wavy little bits on it? But if I bend it that way, it's lovely and smooth. So when you're doing your curls, bend it the way that's going to give it the nice curls. And I have to say that that is pretty revolting on its end. I mean, that's not going to curl, is it? So we'll start from there and just round, round and round. You're going to be going around quite a few times. I've got to that point, that's not going to curl. Cut it off. And once again, in it goes. Now, looks like nothing's happening here yet. But when you've done this maybe 20 times, check it. Which way does it like to curl? It likes to curl that way. You see how nice and even that is? Round and round and round and round. Getting a bit tough on the end, cut it off. And this time, I'm going to put this twirl in this piece. Suddenly you can see something starting to take shape. We're now starting to get some swirls happening here. Let's try it with this one. Which way will it bend? That way. Okay, round we go. This is pretty easy, you've got to say. All you have to do is be able to use your hands and chop off the piece. And this time I'm going to put the twirl in there. And I'm now getting some really nice swirly bits happening. I'll do a couple of more for you, and then I'll come back with it looking a little bit more finished. Then I go, oh, I think I put in that one. Then I go, oh, I'll put in that one. Alright? So you're getting an idea. And you keep going until you've filled it all up. Now I've got one I've already done, and it was done a month ago. But there's the idea. So it's getting lots and lots and lots and lots of swirls in there. But leaving little holes and spaces for other things. The reason I've let you see this a month later is you can see it's a very, very cool design that will just keep on going because you simply replace. These have gone slightly brown. Doesn't matter. It still looks like a lovely little water garden. So now we're going to add the contrast, and that's what the Mingwa fern's for. It's just to say, let's put a tiny bit of contrast from all those straight lines and tuck it down in. Another tiny bit. As I said, anything in your garden that's a wee bit fuzzy and interesting, tucking it right down in, and it's just giving you this very, very cool little contrast. Don't want to do too much of it. Don't want to have our twirls missing out of them. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the hydrangea. A little floret, just a tiny, tiny piece. We don't want it to be the star. In it goes, and we're going to tuck it right down in there. So far down, you can hardly see it. It's giving depth to your design. There's another one. To tuck it right down and tight. Couple more. If you want to know when your hydrangeas are ready to pick so they don't wilt, have a look inside the wee floret, and if it's formed a little hard seedy part, it's going to last ages. If it's not there yet, you'd be lucky if it lasts overnight. Okay, one more and tuck it in there. Then finally we're going to put on the camellias. Now I've cut them fairly short on the stem, and I'm just going to put one in here, one in here, and another one in there. Keeping it safe. Remember they're water lilies, that one's the stalk's too long. There it goes. And there you have it, your water lily garden. Now you simply fill it up with water. On it goes on your coffee table. Do the same thing with the other two, a smaller and a smaller one, or do 5 or 6 of them all in a great big line, which you're going to see when I teach this to the Hamilton ladies, and we'll see what their results are. And there it is. How long did that take you? 5 minutes? Do it, it's good fun.
And here is the work of the Hamilton ladies. As you can see, they had far different types of foliage and flowers, but it still looks brilliant, especially in those complementary colours of orange and purple.
Design number 3, getting a little bit more complicated here, but still really, really easy. What you're going to need here are 2 vases. You notice I'm using the same vases I used for your first lesson, 2 the same. You'll find out why in a wee while. You're also going to have a pasta machine. Now these pasta machines you can get second hand, and if you have a look at them closely you'll see it comes with 3 grooves in it. One's smooth, one's fat, and one's skinny. The smooth one has got nothing to do with flower arranging, that's to do with making pasta. And the back one is the cutter that you're going to use for this design. You're also going to need some floral foam, which I don't use very often. We're going to show you how to use it here. Something to cut your foam. I've got this fierce looking chopper simply because it was the first thing in the kitchen I could see. And remember in your first lesson I said to go to the supermarket and get a wee piece of plastic. You used the lid in the first lesson to stand the vase on. This time we're going to use the base of it. You also need some flax and just a tiny bit of flower arranging type material out of your garden, hydrangea, something along those lines. So start with the foam. You can see I've just got a half a block here, and I'm going to cut it straight down through the middle. Now this foam I have already put in the sink of water, so it's wet. If you've never done it before, you simply take the foam and lay it on top of the water you've already put in the sink and wait for the foam to sink, don't prod it. Then here's your plastic little thingy container, and you're going to cut it down because it's going to fit in the top of your vase. So whatever vase you use, find one where the container is going to fit in the top, and you're going to cut the second one down the same way. So here we go, chop, chop, chop. Don't really want it that tall because we want to have access to the floral foam. So I'm simply cutting it so it will fit into the top of that vase. So there you are, it's going into the top, and we just check it, yes it's going to fit in. Cut the foam to fit. This is pretty easy. Press it down in, take it out again and cut where the lines are. Now, like on my side, it will fit perfectly in there. If it doesn't, you just squish it so it does. So that's what you're aiming for. And then you squash it in. Now, normally to attach something like that to this, you would use florist tape. But in this design, if I use florist tape, which is green, it would come right down the sides and look really, really ugly. So I'm going to use sellotape. And there's a wee trick to use sellotape. Sellotape, because it's see-through obviously, on it goes on the edge, and then I'm going to twist it across the top of the phone. The reason I'm twisting it is so that it doesn't take too much room on the phone, and then down it goes the other side. The secret is not to get it wet, I can tell you. I'm going to do that several times onto here until it's lovely and secure. Twist once, twist twice, and down onto the other side. And that should remain really firm. I'm going to do the same thing on this one, then I'll get back to you. So there it is. The vases are now ready for the next stage. You can see that this one, it fits right inside that little dish. So really be careful of finding a dish that's going to fit inside. Once again, I'm going to start with this piece of flax straight out of my garden. When you use making pasta flax, anything that's on it that's brown, like these spots here, will show up when it dries. So if you can get perfect specimens, do it. Now the first thing I'm going to do is simply trim off that yucky piece at the top. Alright, I haven't split it in two. This is one full piece of New Zealand flax, the great big one. And it's as easy as this. And it's going into that back cutter. I'm then just going to turn. And here it comes. To the back. When it won't go anymore, I cut off that piece and finish it through. And there it is, pasta flax. And this is what we're going to use to twist and turn to make the connection between the two vases. You'll need to make as many of these as vases you have. When you see me doing it in Hamilton, we're actually going to have 5 vases lined up. Pretty simple, isn't it? If you want to preserve these flat, I put them under the mattress of my bed between 2 pieces of newspaper. If you want them curled, you curl them up in the newspaper and put them somewhere to dry. So here we go again, starting from that piece. Did you see I just cut it off? Down we go. Here it's coming up. These are just cutters it's going through. When I get to the piece that's too hard to get through the machine, I don't want to break my machine. And there it is again. It comes out looking like that. You go like that and you go, oh, isn't that just gorgeous? For this next stage, you're going to have to pick your flax very carefully, because if you pick the wrong flax, you're going to just get frustrated. Can you see when I hold this piece of green New Zealand Flax, this is the very tough native up. It just, sometimes it will sit, but see how it's sort of like sagging over? Now compare that to this one, which I've just picked out of my garden, and can you see how it's giving me a lovely straight stiff line? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a piece of flax that when you hold it up, retains that shape. Can you imagine the frustration if you tried to put this piece up in your design and it's all floppy and you go, how did Trish manage to make it stay up? I didn't. The plant material did. So that's your first test of the sort of flax that you need for the next part of the design. This is fabulous for making pasta flax, this great big New Zealand native green flax. This is fabulous for creating line in your design. Now I've picked the flaxes that are in my garden that have got red accents on them. And the reason I've done that is so that they go with the red hydrangea when my design is finished. It would be really lovely if I could find a piece of flax that was twice as long as the length of my container. That sort of is. To prepare flax to go into a vase, this is what you do. You cut it there, and you cut it there. And what this does is makes this beautiful sharp point. This part here will still soak up water, that part will go deep into the foam. Obviously this part can't be deeper than my foam or it will just crash on the bottom, so I'm going to cut a wee bit off there. This is going to go into the back like that. Pushing those pieces down in here so they can soak up the foam, and there it is. Look at that beautiful angle as it goes up. I'll do another one for you. Once again, just checking to say, has it got a nice piece of form on it? It has. So we cut up here, which is the middle. Trying to do it, sorry, so I'm not in the way of your camera. Then across like that, there's the point. Cut it so it will fit into the foam. Now these two pieces are going to be together, so I want them talking to each other. So I'm now placing it so that one's saying hello, and now this one is going to say hello to that side. Can you see how immediately you're getting a connection between the two vases? They're not going to be that close together, but you're getting this lovely connection. So when you place the flax, always see how they relate to the other elements in it. So if you have a look at those top two pieces that are now talking to each other, one is also slightly lower than the other. Just think of them as two swans, just looking and talking to each other as they work. And now I'm going to add the baby swans. It's with proportion, you always come down more and more and more as you're getting closer and closer to your vase at the bottom. So I've got another one. I've checked once again that this one is nice and straight and won't flop over. Once again, I'm going to cut it. Up I go, and across, and trim that bottom piece off, and open it up. Now I'm looking at this and I'm going, now where's it going to be happier? So it's carrying on this lovely talking with the design. Going, oh, it's a bit tall. How do I know it's a bit tall? Because I'm wanting to come down by thirds, halves every time. So I think I'm going to cut it again. I'm going to cut it way up here because I'm saying it's too tall. If you do this just very quietly and just look at the plant material, don't just shove it in, you'll get this very graceful design. So there it is. And I'm going to put you there. Pushed right down in. So we're going from the top, down one, and down another one. I'm also getting smaller with the width of these. I've got another one here. Am I saying is it going to be happy there? I'm going to go right down here. I'm going to go right down here with that one. And which way do you think? No, I think I'll put it that way. Did you see how it looked cool that way? In it goes. Got one piece left. Look how lovely and straight that one is. It's got a hideous top on it. So we'll just trim off the top. And I go, and how small's this one going to be? I think it's going to be about all there. And then it goes right in here. That's all the flax we're going to use for these top bits. And now we're going to add the hydrangeas. Once again, cut off the little florets and pop them all round in. When you see this being done in Hamilton, you will see they're actually going to be using flowers. Everybody's been asked to bring flowers out of their gardens. This time of the year it is camellias, the end of the roses. It's going to be very interesting to see what they bring. Alright, so I'll keep doing this. I'll come back to you in a minute. These are called florist pins. They're basically bits of wire that have been put into a U shape. If you don't have these, you can just chop wire up into that shape. We're going to use those now to connect the pasta flax to your design. And this is where you just go with the flow. One of the things you learn in Ikebana is go with the flow of the plant material. So here's my pasta flax. Oh, I just love it. And I'm going to connect up the two designs with it. I'm going, how does it want to go? And I'm going, oh, okay, it wants to go there. So we push this through and connected it. Pushing that into it. I'll hide that in a minute, so don't get concerned. And then around we come. Pop it into here and push that into the frame as well. There we go. Do we like that? Oh, we'd like it to be up a wee bit more than that. And this is just now, you're just now being very creative, deciding where you want things to go and putting it in there. Alright? Yours might go differently. Don't worry about seeing all that yet. You can get rid of all that. Here's the second one. See it's got a big split up there? If you can't, once again, go with the plant material. I'm going to split it up there and make it smaller. And now I'm going to say, where do I want this one to go? Oh, fiddle about. Have a look and decide for yourself. I'm going to have it going through the back. So I'm going to poke that bit in. Yours will look completely different because you will have different pieces of pasta, different bits of plant material. But what you're trying to get is trying to get a lovely rhythmical swirl going down and around. See how it just flopped? I say, right, Mr. Pasta Flax, you want to flop? You can flop. Or for the time being you can flop. I might pop them up here and push it into the frame. Now I've got the other piece that I split in half, and I'll go start on this side, start at the back, push it in. Now I'm going to bring it right the way around to the front. Attach it under here. The reason I've done that is it's given it depth. You don't want your flower arrangement to look two-dimensional. You want it to have some depth there. And then we've got some problems. We can see something here. We can see something here. So once again, take some disguising material and pop it in. Look, never there, was it? And there it is. Now, a wonderful cameraman Mike tells me that you can't really see the back of this, so I'll go and get the backdrop and you can have a look at that against the black backdrop and see the finished effect. Now this arrangement has got a secret, and the secret is that you could make this arrangement 1 month and 4 months later it would still be fine. The reason is, if you use hydrangeas, they actually will dry in the container. If you use pasta flax, that flax will now turn a golden cream over 3 or 4 months. This flax here will also slowly dry, and this will be the first thing that goes, and that might take a month before it will actually go. So a very, very good design for you. If you're a busy person, you want something in your house that you don't have to worry about for a while.
So, back at Floral Designers Hamilton, you can see how they're going with all these processing, selecting the upright flax, making sure they talk to each other inside the frame, just checking that they are pieces of flax there are nicely trimmed, and adding Alstroemeria. Yes, that's what was in season when I got there. Alstroemeria, and cutting it so it's short stems to make a nice tight posy-like collar being pushed into that foam, and the odd last of the season's roses. Chrysanthemums is another lovely choice. And here they are, all 5 designs up at the table, spaced out, and the expert designers from the club have put them together with the pasta flax swirls, and look at that result. What a stunning display for any event, large or small. So have a go.
For this next design, you are going to need 2 blocks of floral foam and this plastic tray. It's been designed to take exactly 2 blocks of floral foam, and it is available worldwide at florists. If you can't, it's called a casket tray, double, meaning it's got 2 lots of foam in there. If you can't find that, another idea would be a baking tray with short sides on it. You'd also need some ribbon. Now this is paper ribbon because it's going to be easy to tear, and I've chosen its colour to go with the marine that I'm going to use in the design. Double-sided sellotape, some glass files, the florist pins that I showed you before, and this stuff which is called Abaca. It's a natural fibre and we're just going to use it to hide the foam. Now if you don't have this, you can use plant material which is called basing material, such as mosses, hydrangeas, something that will cover the foam when it's in the container. So don't think because you haven't got these things you can't do this design. Just be creative and have a look and find substitutes. And of course the flax. Now when you're deciding on the flax you want, once again, just like the last design, you want flax that's not floppy, because we're going to hold this flax into the container so it's all going upwards. Do you notice that when I hold it like this at the bottom, it flops? Right, so it's not going to, there, it flops. But if I cut it perhaps there, it might stay upright for you. So this great big green New Zealand native can still be used, providing you cut it a little bit further up so it will hold. Other than that, use the more upright pieces like this. The reason I want to use the New Zealand flax is because we're going to do some cool effects on it and we want that width. Alright, so let's get on with it. The foam has been wet in a bucket where I have put water in the bucket and floated it on top until it is totally and utterly wet. So in it goes, one there, and in it goes, one there. How easy was that? There it is. 2 blocks of floral foam in the plastic container. Now we're going to cover this with the Abaca. So with scissors you cut it to the size. It's going to go down the sides, and now we're going to just attach it, and that's what these are for. You simply push it in, it's attached. Push it in, it's attached. Obviously cut off the excess. Do the same with the ends. Got this little scrap here. Cut it to size. Pop it in. Need at the base there. Pop it in. And trim it to size. So there's your base, done the other end too. So now we have that done, and the flax, I'm going to decide where I can cut the flax where it's not going to wobble. Just like we did in the last lesson, cut the piece out so it will sit into the foam, and then test it. If it does flop at the top, you can turn it like this. Alright, so we're going to say, yep, that's going to work. We're going to do a little piece of weaving into the middle of it, just for interest. So you've got paper ribbon. As I said, the reason you don't use satin ribbon is because it's harder to split. It's going to be pretty dumb if I wove across there with something that width, isn't it? It's out of proportion. I'm going to make it thinner. So I'll cut myself a length with my fingernail, where I think in proportion it's going to look alright, and just do that. And there I have a little piece of ribbon for weaving. Now we have to do the splits. Once again, anywhere along this length, because you're going to do 4 or 5 of these, and you don't want them all in the same place because you want a bit of variety. So I'm going to do it down here at the wide part. Use your fingernail, make a split, and another split, another split, and another split. See what we've done? And we're now going to weave it in, out, in, out. Remind you of your primary school days. In New Zealand we used to all learn how to weave like this when we had our craft. And down to the end. Just make that split a little bit bigger there. Alright, I'll come back once I've carried on. Remember, we're simply going in and out to the back, keeping it all nice and flat, and then doing it in the opposite direction. So this time, going out and in, out and in, out and in. Always trying to end up at the back there. So just to recap, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 splits. Always go for an uneven number of splits, and that way it will always turn around at the back. You've got to keep the back very neat as well, because remember, this is going to be seen from both sides. You want to keep it neat and straight as you go. Alright, easy. So there it is, finished. You can carry on as high as you want with it or as low as you want with it. And I've just popped it in there in the meantime. When you see the ladies doing at Hamilton, you'll see the whole arrangement put together. All we're going to do is cut a hole in a piece of flax. To do this, 1 cut, 2 cut, change to the scissors, and done. This is an ikebana technique, and the reason we want this hole is so you're going to look through the hole to see what's behind it. Alrighty, so that's just how to cut a hole in a piece of flax. Notice I've cut it right through that stem, and I've picked a very stout piece of flax. We have the water file. Got some double-sided sellotape on it. Right round this time. This is very strong sellotape. It is wonderful. And now that I've got it right round, pull it off, right the way around. Place it on the inside. Ooh, it is so sticky. And now we're going to hide it with another piece of flax onto the top of it like that. Peel it round. Here it is, completely hidden. Now at the base, do exactly the same as we did yesterday to prepare it to go into the foam. This time we're working with 2 pieces. And it's ready to go into the foam. And so, when I'm ready, I can cut the marine, pop it inside, and there we have a flower coming out of the flax. And it's a perfect match for the ribbon. Alright, so those are the techniques. Catch again when we're in Hamilton and you'll see how we put it all together as a design.
You can see the ladies started just as you will with the blocks of floral foam in that black tray, and they are basing it with hydrangeas all out of their garden to make a beautiful round solid shape. Then in groups they some wove and some cut the holes into the flax, all ready for it to be gathered up and put in the big long collective arrangement, which is a magnificent idea for a side table at a buffet or a wedding. The woven pieces of flax you can see there are being put horizontally all the way along the piece to give it a really nice different look. And there it is, almost finished.
Now we're back for Hamilton. I thought I'd also show you the variation of this one. When we got there, they had all these beautiful hydrangeas, so I changed my mind about using the apica, and we decided to base with hydrangeas. We've just got to show you how to do that. The hydrangea floret is a great big one, so you cut little pieces and you cut it so there's a stem leaf to be able to push in. Obviously if you cut it right up here, you're going to have nothing to push in and you're going to be fighting those 3 stalks. So make sure when you cut a floret off the big head of the hydrangea, just allow yourself, if you can, even more than that, to put it in, and then you just push it in. At the show you'll have seen we did hydrangeas, these beautiful, beautiful chrysanthemums just out at the bottom there, and I also added a little bit of amaranthus because it was bringing in the purple colour that I wanted. So if you're lucky enough to have hydrangeas, use them for basing. It's much, much quicker. But they had another lovely idea for the woven pieces that they did. They actually also put them going along the edges. Now if you want to do this, the same thing. I'm going to make it curl like this. So you're going to cut it just like I showed you before, and now you're going to put this piece into the foam, push it right in, and you're going to twirl it onto the front. You need the floristry pin now because you're going to bring it around and just push that piece into the foam. This piece here, which is not particularly pretty, you can cut off, and that's hidden by the basing. Now if you have a look, by doing that, you've called what's sheltered. You've sheltered that beautiful chrysanthemums and brought it through. So you can see the finished design that the ladies did in Hamilton, but this is just a close-up. So if you want to do that variation, you now know how they did that swirly pit.
And there it is, finished, with those beautiful chrysanthemums and dahlias amongst the basing. And you can also see them way up high there, hidden by those test tubes up in the flax. Fantastic design for a big event or a small table. You're going to make a zigzag design. I've done the first zig here to show you how to make the second part, the zag. This is a fabulous idea for a table where you have guests because they can see over the top of it. You can put in any flowers you like, whatever you've got. For this design you're going to need some cardboard. This is A4 cardboard and it's fairly thick. The reason it has to be thick is it's got to be able to stand up, as you can see. Glass flower tubes, some sellotape. The sellotape I've selected is invisible tape, so you won't see it. If you look closely there, you'll see it still sitting there, but it completely disappears. It's invisible, so try and find that invisible tape. The alternative to sellotape is stapler. If the sellotape's not holding, use a stapler. A pair of scissors and some wire. Now the wire I'm using are the two different grades. This is a very, very fine gold, decorative purposes only. It won't achieve very much, but it will look pretty. This one is slightly thicker, a little bit harder to bend, and that will hold the flax where you want it. Third sort of wire I've got, it already comes beaded. Do tangle all the time. One orange, one yellow, and so I can put orange and yellow flowers in there and it'll bring it up. And of course the flax. Any flax for this one. I've picked out 2 pieces of ordinary native flax, and that's what you need to collect to get started. So you're going to start by preparing your flax, and all you're going to do is cut it straight across there. Notice this time I'm not doing it in the normal way. This part here, which is the hinge, is fairly critical, so I've just put a piece of sellotape down there, but it's not enough, it would fall apart, so I'm going to add a little bit more sellotape, front and back, going across as a hinge. This way there's no danger whatsoever that it's going to fall apart on that piece. So that's the sellotape. You can see I use it here for the hinge. That's where it's going, hidden inside that flax. If you're too frugal with that sellotape, it's going to go apart. It will split. You don't want that to happen. So do it also on the other side.
Keep that sellotape handy, you're going to need it.
Take a little piece of sellotape and secure it at the base. That's all you need to do now, up to the top there, and bend it over. a nice and neat bend onto the other side. Make sure the cardboard can't be seen and bend it over again. Now you can make this a decision. This top piece might be quite pretty or might be ugly. I think that's ugly. Cut it off and tiny piece of sellotape and pop it over. This is the function of the wire later. The wire is actually going to hold that flax in, and that's all we're doing right the way along. Can you see this one here is not really secure, so I'm going to wee bit of sellotape down the bottom too. Now when you're doing this you must overlap the flax. The reason is this flax not going to be in water and it will shrink very quickly. If it shrinks and you haven't done enough of an overlap, you're going to see your cardboard. So be warned. Can you see? Quite a big overlap, because shrinkage of New Zealand flax, particularly this variety, is huge. So big overlap and sellotape it down. Over to the top. A nice strong bold down on either side. We've got to do something about that later. And cut it across there. Now if you have a look at this one I've already done, you'll see some of them I've left the points on and sellotaped it down, like that one there. Others I have cut at the top, like that one there. So there's our first two done. I don't want it all green, I'm going to find some more flax. I have two rather lovely colours here. This one would look gorgeous with the white. See, it's picking up the green in the middle. This one looks beautiful with bits of orange in the flowers. So once again, cut it straight across. The reason I'm cutting it here is that piece won't bend. It's just not worth doing anything with. And here we go again. Remember we had that piece that was missing there? So I'm going to start this way this time. And the reason is, of course, is to hide that piece of cardboard. So I sellotape at the point and sellotape that point down. Remember, the sellotape should be invisible and it will disappear as you push it down. Then bend over, go, nice neat fold into the other side. If we go like this and carry on the other side, it's going to look pretty ugly, isn't it? So I'm going to cut it off. And then sellotape it onto the top there. Push that sellotape down and it will disappear. And yellow piece, and I think you're getting the idea by now, and go long, and I'm going to leave you to right to the end. And when you and I both come back, you'll be ready for the next part, which is to see what happens next.
So there it is, stage one finished. Did you get this far or did you carry on watching the DVD? I betcha you're wanting to see what happens next. So I've gone right around both sides using sellotape. Remember, you can use a stapler if you prefer. And you can see it's fairly lumpy. There's the join well hidden there. And so that's going to go on that side there for the rest of the zig and the zag. So two bits of wire to choose from. This one is on a reel or a stick, and it's much easier to use than this one that's on the reel. This is finer wire, and it really does, when you take it off that little slot, it does tend to go choo, and it's just a great big mess. Hence, I would recommend, if you've never used this sort of decorative wire before, wind it onto this. This is thicker wire as well. So how you're going to put this wire on? Purpose of the wire is to hold the flax in place. Did you notice? I put a tiny wee cut in the cardboard there. I'm then going to just pop the wire through there to hold it. When I've finished, I will wire it to itself, and you've started. And what you're going to do, keep your finger on it while you're starting, is you're simply going to go round and round, pulling it tight as you go. The purpose is to hold that flax down so it won't move as it shrinks. And around again. You're going to do this all the way across your piece of cardboard. As tight as you can. I picked green because of the green flax. You can get this wire in lots of different colours. Red, if you're using red flowers, looks really, really cool. Orange, gold is really good. Where do you get the wire from? A florist wholesalers, they all have them. If you don't have access to that sort of a person, pop into your local florist shop and ask them if they can get it for you. Alright, so we're winding, and I'm going to go right to the end with that. Winding. As I'm winding, I'm checking that I'm going over the top of the sellotape, because those sellotapes are points to show me what needs to be held down. Much easier as you can do it, get it towards yourself. See how easily that is just rolling out of my hand. And of course, when I get to this end right here, I've got to do the same thing as I did at the beginning. Put a little nick in the cardboard, put the wire through the nick, and cut it off to finish later. Now I'm going to show you how awkward it is using this one. So I'm going to start with a nick at this end again. The reason I'm using lots of wire is just so that the flax has lots of chances of getting in. With this one, using this sort of wire, you can't let it get out of control. So you have to hold it tight and always keep it in your hand, or otherwise it's going to end up on the floor in a great big tangle. This is giving me a second opportunity to secure that flax exactly where I want it. It's also giving me a little bit of gold to add a wee bit more interest. So almost at the end. Round once more, and here's that little slit I did from last time, and pop it in there and cut it off. Now to finish this piece off, I'm going to wind those two around each other. Can you see there? It's wound around each other. Cut off and just quietly bent down into there. And the same at the other end. Twist it once, twice, 3 and 4 around each other. Cut it off neatly and bend. Right, so that's the 2 lots of wire that should be now securing it. You'll notice it's not looking as lumpy, and this is where the decorative beady wire comes in. This is again from a floristry wholesalers, and once again, this time the bead is going to hold it in place on that cut I made. And once again, around we go. This time a little bit bigger. And going to do the same, but this time from this end. Slip that first bead into my little mark, my little slot, and back I go. And that is your basic structure done. That's my hinge way. Sitting like that, nice sharp piece there. You set it up so it zigzags. Now can you see then how you can get a really nice long piece that will last for as long as you want to make it. So what's left to do is simply put in the vials. Use a piece of double-sided sellotape like we have in the other lessons, and you can just stick it on and it will hold. Pop in the flowers and you're done.
I've relocated the design now up into the dining room, living room, and here you can see I am filling up those flower files with water and just adding the flowers randomly. These flowers are straight out of my garden. You see I've picked oranges to go with the orange beads and yellow centres to go with the yellow beads, and there it is, all done.
This design is for late autumn, almost winter. When you're saying I've got nothing to make a design with. So I've brought you out into my garden where the flax is growing so I can show you some techniques for making something almost out of nothing. Now for this, first thing you're going to need is a pin holder. Pin holder, they're called in New Zealand, Australia, they're called frogs in America. Really they're just nails sticking up on a base, and you want a very, very small one. Second thing you want are some more of these U-shaped, if I do it as a U, you'll see it, U-shaped floristry pins. And finally, a casket tray, a double casket tray. Yes, this is familiar. This is exactly what you used for one of the other designs you've done. And it's actually the same one. The design I showed you before is dead and gone, and this is being reused. The reason you can reuse this floral foam is because everything in it is going to dry, and it doesn't matter if it dries out. So those are your ingredients. I've also bought something out of my garden. Here they are. The hydrangeas looking quite dead. But underneath, you can see there, I will find some that have just got little touches of red on them. And over here, the flax, this glorious one here, and the one at the back, which we're going to use. This is why I have my flax bushes for floral art. You can see they're very, very well cut down. It's because we use them so often. I'm also lucky enough to have in my garden right now some amaranthus called Love Lies Bleeding. This is the last one of the season, so I'm going to pop that in, but you don't need it. This is all about flax, remember. Look at that, beautiful. So I'm going to start by showing you how to make a flax flower. The first thing we're going to do is, remember, don't strip it right down to here. We're going to make little lines with your fingernail all the way up. The thinner you make these strips, the finer your flax flower is going to end up. There it is. See, I've not gone to the bottom. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is weave in, out, right the way across. Didn't take weaving lessons when you were a child, now's the time to do it. There's the first one done. Keep it really neat and tidy and straight across. Now we're going to do the same with the second one. In and out, right the way across. Now with the third one. Can you hear the birds? Somebody mowing their lawn behind me? Those early winter sounds, everybody cleaning up. And the next one. Next one. This piece of flax here wants to become part of the scene. And the next one. And the next one. Now we're going to start again from this side. Now we're going to turn it round and do the same thing going this way. So making sure you're going in and out before you went out and in. Along this way. Pull it down so it's nice and tight. Now take the next one, and where before you went out, you go in. These are little bits coming off because the flax is so fresh, but don't worry about it, you can just cut those off later. Now we're going to do the next one. The finer you do it, the more glorious it's going to look.
Now this time you should be able to tell me what to do. Yes, we're going to turn it this way. We're now going the next direction. So we take the last one we just used, around we go. Under, over. And tuck it in. Now this is a wee bit like watching paint dry, so I'm actually going to speed it up so you can see it done from beginning to end without it taking as long as it's going to take me, which is a couple of minutes. I've got to there and I managed to get round twice. It's because my piece of flax was a very short one. If you want to get lots of these twirly pieces, you might get a much longer piece of flax. To finish it all off, you take them as 2 bundles and you just tie a knot in the middle. Tie it softly and then the other way, and you've got yourself a knot. And there it is, finished. If you like it like that, you leave it like that. If you want them trimmed off, trim them off. If you don't like the knot at all, you can push it, turn it and put it into the back. I actually like the knot, I think it gives it a good look. So that's your first flax flower. Second thing I'm going to do is show you how to shred flax. The first thing you're going to do when you cut your flax is cut it so you have that piece at the bottom of there, because you want to retain that. And here's the pin holder. Now you hold the pin holder in your hand because you don't want to be cutting yourself, so don't put it on the ground and try and do it that way. Hold it this way and you're simply going to put the flax into it. See, I'm letting the needles go through and pull. Ta-da! And we do it again on this side. If you're using really tough flax, you might want to take that middle piece out. I'm going to see with this one because this is actually not tough flax, this is a hybrid flax. No, it's going to work there. And it's all through. By holding the pin holder this way, there's no way you're going to hurt your fingers. And there you have your flax done. That is shredded flax, and heaps of people will use it like that. For this design, I'm going to plait it. I guess if you had long hair as a child, you'll know about how to plait. Into the middle, I actually really need someone holding it. Put it between my knees, might be a little bit easier. Get some tension on it. And plait. Into the middle and over we go. See, that's giving you a nice effect there. You can tie that down or we'll pin it down when we do our design. I've now cut some more flax off those little bushes behind me, and you'll now remember, once again, you'll be an expert of how to prepare it. You'll also be an expert of knowing which way to make it loop. You're going to put it in, and now you're just going to loop it the way the flax wants to go. Pin it, and loop it again. Always just gently following the paths where the flax wants to go. Yours once again will look very different from mine because you're going to be using your flax. Which way? That way. In it goes. I want it quite close to the ground, this design. So this time we're going to loop it to there. And now I'm going to loop it this way. See, you can get as artistic as you want with this one. Starting them all at this end so I get some nice rhythm going. All heading off in this direction. Under there, I think. So we get the nice line to this design. That way, did you see I almost put it in the wrong way? Get a nice loop on it down here. And in it goes. Alright, now I said I had these wee bits of hydrangea that I've picked. I'm going to just use these to hide some of that foam. You can use anything you've got in your garden actually to hide it through. And this one here is going to be the same. Now the reason I've done this is just to create a little bit more texture, something a wee different that's going to roll through it. I don't want it that long at that end, so I'm going to cut it there, and it goes, and then I'm going to loop it over the top and around, simply for a different texture. Now you need 4 or 5 of these, and you'd also, here's your flax flower. Now your flax flower is just going to be sitting somewhere interesting on it where people go, oh look at this. And if you've got enough flax, do 2 or 3 of them and just pop them in. I'm going to leave it there, and then I'll show you the finished design. I'll have 2 or 3 more bits of flax flower. I'll have some more of the shredded, and all this will be covered up with a bit more of my hydrangea. And if I decide I will and it all goes, I might even add some more of the amaranthus. So I'll show it to you finished in a second. So there it is, finished. You can see I've used camellias, which happened to be in my garden because it needed something to brighten itself up. And those camellias did it. I only used 3 and they nestled straight into that floral foam. And here are the close-ups where you can see those flax flowers. I ended up making 2 of them. And also the shredded flax, I did 3 braids of them. And it's pretty easy design to do. So do have a go with it. And now here is the finale. These are using exactly the same components but putting it inside the white vase we started all the lessons with. You now know how to put the floral foam in the top and use these dried components to build something bigger. And the tall pieces at the top is flax that's dried out and rolled itself up. Something to try. Have a go.